Special podcast alert time, which means hit like and subscribe, and let's get after it. Hi, hello, and welcome to your favorite average to good podcast. Call it what you want. It's a special edition of this one because one of our members, Jesse Marsch, might be leaving for something different, but I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies. We have a lot of questions for our third co-host here. But first, I want to let everybody know that this Average to Good podcast is going to continue without Jesse Marsch. We'll get into what he's doing here very shortly. And likely it'll become Good to Great because Jesse's going to be leaving. So
the show must go on.
That's up for debate. That's up for debate.
The show is going to go on. The show is going on, and next week, Brian McBride is going to be joining us, which honestly, it's already pushing us to Good to Great. Sorry, Jesse. That's just how it's going to go.
Yeah.
But
it's an upgrade. That's an upgrade. I'm not.
But we appreciate the support from everybody. And of course, the show will continue. The show must go on. All right, Jesse. So let's get into it. You just got announced as the head coach for the Canadian men's national team. And what we want to know is, what was your process in making the decision to be the head coach of America's Hat?
I would say, you guys behind the scenes a lot, we have talked, and I've had a lot of discussions over the last year plus, a lot of good discussions, and then a lot of discussions where I just felt like the connection wasn't right, the process of the way different clubs and teams thought didn't necessarily mesh with me and what I believed was important to be successful. So, then as soon as I started the process with Canada, I was incredibly impressed. I will tell you right now that Kevin Blue, the Secretary General for Canada, is the best sports professional I've ever been around. He's incredibly sharp. He's intelligent. He can execute a plan, an intellectual, high-level thinker. And so I'm excited to work with him. I think there's a lot of symmetry with that. And then, thinking about the player pool and the kind of players that Canada has at its disposal, and thinking about how it fits with who I am. And you know what? There's another element to it. People always want to put coaches in these boxes, right? And you always want to say, what's their win-loss record? And this is how they play football. And, they are like this. And to me, it's nauseating. It's absolutely nauseating because most people have no idea what this is like and what it requires. And for the most part, I felt like being part of this program was going to allow me not only to think about how to impact the first team the most, but also the sport in the country. And I think that there's a more holistic vision for me being the head coach of the Canadian national team than just what are the wins and losses. And obviously, I always know that I'll be judged by those things. And the success of the first team in the 2026 World Cup will be the most important thing for me to manage. But there's so much more that can be done in Canada to help the sport continue to grow. And I want to make a real positive impact in that way. So all those things kind of combined made me feel like it was the right time to get back to work.
Well, Jesse, you know me. I got to give you one of those Chuck questions where it's got a couple things to it. For me, it's, I know just how passionate you are about coaching, and I think over the past year or so, we started to get close, and I understand you a lot better now, and I understand what you're trying to achieve and how far you want to go. And when I saw how you did with Salzburg, and then you went from Salzburg to managing the Premier League, and Europe felt like this is something you want to conquer. You want to achieve the greatest of accomplishments there, and you take this job. Is it Europe still where you want to be in the end, or do you feel like this job has taken you out of that equation, and at least in the short term? Is this something that you still want to do? Is that still part of your passion? Because I feel like, when you go into the international management role, it's, maybe it's not as easy to get back into club football, especially maybe in Europe.
Look, the short answer is yes, of course. I want to be always considered and considering big roles. But it's almost like the higher that I went, the more disappointed I was in the way that things operate, right? And people think Leeds is such a big club, but if you peel the veil away, we were a club that was in disarray when I got there, very financially a mess, and it made then managing everything very difficult. But I decided to take that on, and I tried to do the best I could with it. And for me, listen, I mean, I've gone through it about Leeds, and I don't need to go through it again. But it was a mess before I got there, and shortly after I left, it was a mess again, right? And so the work that we did in that time was stable, was strong, and on the inside, we felt really good about it. And that's and I consider my time at Leeds, in terms of the work that was done on the inside and the relationships I had with the players, a big success for me. It was personally very enjoyable, and I point specifically at my times in New York, my time in Salzburg, and my time in Leeds. And I'm very thankful to have worked with those players and those people on the inside of those clubs. And when I use that as both a learning process and a marker for me on what I think is important in doing work, right? I've said this to you guys already. I don't need to work. I love to work. But because I love to work, I have to protect, I think, the ways that I think about how to work and who to work with. And again, this led me down this road with Canada that made me feel like the people were amazing, and the opportunity to actually be able to work and impact things is what inspired me, right? And people to do it with.
Okay, so Jesse, I'm sure, like you, got a lot of texts about this opportunity and you taking this opportunity with Canada. And my first initial response was, at least it's not Mexico, because historically that's our big rival, right? So, but as things stand currently, Mexico, the drop off is real. They've recognized it. They're clearly changing and making some decisions with Jaime Lozano in charge. They're going to bring in more young players for Copa America, obviously with eyes to 2026. Now, in that, I guess, transition moment, it feels like Canada is now emerging as our potential top rival, at least in the near term. And so, how does it feel to potentially go to a rival of the U.S.? And I love everything that you're going to bring. And like Chuck said, we really value you and your methodology and your ideology as in terms of your approach and the holistic approach to the game and how you want to coach. I've learned a ton from you already, especially behind the scenes, just talking about coaching in general. But how does it feel to essentially go to a rival? Because I know it's not Brazil, Argentina, but in Canada's super friendly, so you kind of just like, that's all right. But then when you start to strip it away, it's still a rival.
Listen, I obviously growing up in the U.S. and contributing and playing for the national team, playing for the youth national teams, coaching at the World Cup with the U.S. national team. My respect for U.S. soccer is big, but I went through a process with them, right? And I'm not going to go into it, but I wasn't treated very well in the process. And so whatever, man, that's in the past now. And now I'm fully focused. I was the minute it was done, I was like, okay, I'm moving forward and I'm going to figure out what's right for me. And again, it motivated me again to find the right people. And so now I want to talk about Canada because I'm excited I feel like it's a fan base and a player pool and a nation that resonates with me. I've worked there before. I know a lot of the people involved. Again, I think the talent pool of Canadian players is really good. We have a lot of work to do. That's one of the toughest things right now. Is even now I'm sort of on this amazing race tour around Europe to meet with some of the players and to like talk with them about how we're going to build this and what things we're going to value as we move forward. But I want to start to get to work, right? And I've said to a few of them already. From talking to them, from meeting them, they're incredible young men, and I know I'm going to fall in love with this team. And the hardest thing is going to be not working with them all the time, right? So I'm going to have to find ways to continue to engage myself and to challenge the staff, and then our relationships with the players, and then how we can impact the sport overall in Canada to make as big an impact as we can in the immediate future, which is this summer, and then beyond. And by the way, I've made it also clear publicly that I know my task is to get us to 2026 and have an incredible performance. But I think I'm going to love this job. I think I'm going to love the experience and the people that are working here. And I don't think it'll be out of the question for us to consider what it could look like long term.
How long till you know the national anthem? Okay.
I could sing it.
Are we dialed in already?
Already, Charlie.
That's right. Coach in Montreal. Coach in Montreal. Chuck. He's go first.
So what's first? What's first
monsieur.
on the agenda for you? Because let's talk about this Canadian national team. What's first on the agenda for you, and what's your relationship like with a person like Joey Saputo, who you've played under before, and I think who helped you with your salary, right, along with the two other MLS clubs?
Yeah. So, first, one of the first things is I'm trying to meet with the players, to sit down and talk with them, and so they can get to know me, and so that when we show up on May 31st to start working, it's not the first time they've seen me, and it's not the first time they've heard me. So I got a lot of phone calls and visits to make, and then I gotta really familiarize myself with all the important people that are in Canadian soccer. And I've had a lot of calls already. And so it's been a lot of little communications and little conversations, and then trying to put the staff together. And there's, I have like a list of 1,000,001 things, right? So we got to make this quick, guys, because I got to get back to work. But yeah, and then Joey and I went to Bologna in the fall, and I met Thiago Motta. I watched Bologna train. Joey's son Luca works for Bologna now. And Joey and I had a really nice talk and kind of talked about our time in Montreal. It was really cathartic. He was apologetic. I was as well. I said, listen, I was young, Joey. I made a lot of mistakes, and I'm very thankful for that opportunity. And I tell you, Joey and I kind of came together at that time, and he's been one of my biggest supporters in this process, along with Greg Kerfoot and MLSE, yes. And so, it's really nice to see that, because when I left, there was so much competitive energy between the three MLS clubs in Canada. And now they've really come together, I think, to support my appointment. And along with that, we're working with the Canadian Premier League and a lot of the people there and a lot of the teams there, because there's work to be done with the domestic league. And I'm getting to know a lot of people. I'm getting to understand the landscape, the new, from when I was there to what it is now. And I'm excited to really work with these people to try to make the sport the best that it can be in the country. So far, everyone's embraced me a lot, which I'm very thankful for. But there's a lot of work to be done to build an infrastructure and a foundation for what the future is. There's a lot of work that's already been done, but I think everybody wants to use this 2026 platform as an opportunity to really launch the sport, almost like what 1994 was in the US. So, everybody's really looking forward to the next couple of years.
So, Jesse, where are you going to have your base? Because there's some beautiful cities in Canada. Or are you going to maybe pull the Jurgen Klinsmann with South Korea and just manage from super far away? And
from Milan.
I'll be in Toronto a lot, and I'll be traveling a lot to watch games, to watch players, a lot even within Canada to get to know people and watch the CPL, so that's one of the things I think you have to do as the coach of any national team is stay active, right? And get to games, get to trainings, meet with coaches, really get your finger on the pulse of what's going on with your players and with teams. And so that part I'm really excited about.
Okay, so Jesse, at some point you're going to face the U.S. Would you be open to doing one of those UFC type intros, press conferences before the game where like you and Greg Berhalter are like nose to nose and like your posse's holding you back, That's
so dumb. That is so dumb.
I'm glad you said it, Jesse, because I that's what I was about to say. Come on.
Listen, man. Again, of course, the U.S. is a bit of right now the measuring stick in Concacaf, right? With the player pool that they have, with how many players they have playing at big clubs and the success they've had over the years, the sport's really developed in the U.S., which we should all be very proud of. But
the best part about it is we're gonna have Nations League, right? We'll be there right next to you when you get that first matchup, right?
I
Canada didn't even qualify for the Nations League. Yeah,
no, for the next one.
Yeah.
I know the next one. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think who knows? I'm sure we'll play the U.S. a few times, and before the World Cup comes around. I'll be looking forward to those matches. I think
as well
the competitive familiarity with things kind of brings out competitive juices. And certainly, like, look, the Canadian team has measured themselves up against the US for years, and that won't stop now or be more magnified just because I'm here. I think that, in general, we want to take this program and continue to establish it. Obviously, winning Concacaf was massive in the last hexagonal or octagonal or whatever it was. And so, obviously we have big goals, and in the end, there'll be some of these moments, but our main focus is just how good can we be on home soil come 2026, right? And how much can we electrify our nation, bring it together, make everybody proud for how the team plays, the successes that we can create. And I believe we have big potential to dream big.
Well, Jesse, I think over the past year, we've been really in discussion about tactics. And so when you look at this Canadian side, and we've addressed it, fantastic attacking options. Defensively, the spine is questionable. So when you're looking at this group, how do you see yourself playing to give this team success? Because I mean, I think Des and Brad can roll the tape when we've actually talked about Canada in the past.
Yeah, I think in general we'll need to be compact and disciplined and organized, right? And then I'll need to build this in stages. I can't just show up on day one and now try to shift everything 180 degrees and go it all in one direction. However, we have to now make sure that we have certain basics and certain principles that we are true to, and understanding how we want to tactically arrange ourselves so that in all phases of the game we're connected and we're clear. But this is often the measure of a coach, right? Is how good are you at making complicated things simple, and then how much do you understand how to layer it and ultimately give the players the chance when they go on the pitch to be free and clear and go after the game, right? That's what I think tactics have to be about.
Is Alphonso more of a attacker or left back for you in this
I
team?
think we're going to use him in ways that I think can feed almost always to success. Look, I don't just want him to be a wide player and wait for the ball to get to him there. I know that at certain moments he can be good in wide spaces, but I want him to be involved in the game more. I think as our best player, we need to use him defensively, and obviously some of his athleticism and 1v1 abilities and defensively, and make sure that we continue to build and develop him in that way, but also make sure that in transition that he can help us, and in build up that he can put himself in dangerous places, and not just that he's always standing on the wing. So, we have a few different ideas on how we'll do that. But, I think he's excited. He's ready, I think, to move forward. He's also made it clear to me that there's certain things that we can do to continue to improve our process. And, all the guys have been very positive so far, but also have been very open and honest about what they think's been good, what they think can be better, and trying to help me understand how to take this team further.
All right, Jesse. So using the U.S. as an example, we've done a pretty good job of recruiting dual nationals into our program.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you'll be looking to do as well? How important will that be in your recruiting process?
Yeah, it's massively important. I think, again, it's all about maximizing what the resources that you have at your fingertips. And so whether it's, how we structure the CSA, how we structure the first team staff, what kind of players we choose to fit how we're going to move forward. Like I'm really trying to now evaluate how many of the established players and older players that have been around that have really helped the team grow and be successful in this last stage. And then how many of the new young players do we want to really start to invest in now, so that in 2 years from now, they're really ready for some big challenges. So getting that right will be important. And then, identifying the players that are out there. And I can say this, Kevin Blue comes from college athletics, right? And the recruitment job he did to get me here was second to none. I've never felt more wanted, more desired, and more appreciated, right?
Are we talking blue chips? We talking like blue chips in their prime?
Yeah. And in the end, when it was time to execute getting my contract done, he did it in 2 days, right? Like this guy, he has a plan, he knows how to execute it, and he knows how to get it done. And so that in this sport, you can't underestimate the value of execution, right? Because everybody talks about how they want to do things and can dream big, but in the end, it's all about execution. And I believe that he and I are going to make a formidable team, and we're excited about the process that we can create. And yes, a big part of that will be not just but identifying which dual nationals are out there, and then finding ways to go out and convince them that this is the right place for them.
All right, we're going to take our first. Go ahead, Chuck.
Right. I was going to say, for you, what's the most attractive part of this job?
The two parts, I'd say. Well, the three parts I said: the player pool and I think the opportunity and potential. The second part is the ability to impact the overall sport in the country and not just be focused on only the team itself, but trying to unify the country, trying to use my expertise and experiences to help take the sport forward. Hopefully my personality will be one of unifying as well. I think that's always been one of my strengths. And then the people that are in the leadership of the CSA and in the sport in the country. Again, like you can't, from when I was there in 2011, 2012, 2013 to now seeing how hard the leaders in this country in the sport all came together and fought to get me here says a lot. And then I think it also gives me an opportunity to actually be a leader in the sport and try to be a unifying factor. And so that means a lot to me. That means
Have you spoke to Drake yet?
No, I mean, do you have his number? Could you send his number?
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
he's going through something with Kendrick Lamar right now, but maybe you can.
He might be a little busy right now.
To be honest, I don't even know what that means.
There's just a rap beef going
Drake?
on, and,
Who's Drake?
Or maybe
you know him as Aubrey.
Maybe you see him on your travels. He could be floating around Europe at this point.
Guys, I'm not that cool. I'm sorry, I'm not that cool, man.
All right, we're going to take our first break and call it what you want. When we come back, more of Jesse Marsch on the hot seat. Don't go anywhere.
At CBS Sports Golazo Network, we're bringing you the game.
Madness of Messi arrives!
Breaking down the game.
This is unlike anything else in the world.
And changing the game.
Get it all for nil.
That means free.
Whoa.
And all day long!
24/7.
I think you're right. Canada will have to figure out how they can be organized offensively and not give much away. And I think that some of that involves being a little bit more compact and deeper and being incredibly explosive on the counter, which is really what they are. And I think if they can figure that out, that their attacking group is, I mean, if you take out Argentina and Brazil, their attacking group is among then the best of the rest of the group. So, Canada will have a lot of kind of 3-2 matches. And then the question is, can they come out on top of those matches? And their group's not so easy, right? Their group is not so easy. But I'm excited to see what they look like in Copa America.
Wow, some foreshadowing there from our very
Were
own
you
Jesse
already in
Marsch
conversation with them at that point?
back in April 1st.
There's like 50 teams that we spoke about that I was in conversations with. So that's just one of them.
Also true.
All right,
man.
so-
By the way, you better learn some Drake before you step in that locker room, because
Okay, what do you suggest is my first step?
I mean,
What's
all
my
his
first
tracks, like he's an
Yeah,
icon in Canada.
I'll give you
Come
my
on.
Spotify. I'll give you my Spotify, and you can sort me out.
All right,
all right?
I'll input some songs for you. I'll get you.
Okay.
So Jesse, looking at this schedule now for you and the Canadian men's national team, you got Netherlands in a friendly. Then, oh, by the way, you got France after that in a friendly. And then, oh, hey, by the way, you got Argentina in your first game of the Copa America. Then you have Peru and Chile as your next two group stage games. They are not going to be easy to break down and get results against either. So how long do you think it's going to take you for you to be back on the podcast with us?
Wow.
Damn,
Wow.
Jesse, he gave you
Wow.
no faith.
All right. So I came
trust?
back here to be. I don't
Hey,
know Drake well enough.
I
and,
saw the Tom
Hey,
Brady roast.
you got it.
Hey.
You got to know Drake.
This is the second segment. We got into the roasting. We're roasting now. I saw the Tom Brady roast. I
Okay.
thought Jesse could
Okay.
take a shot at
By the way, Tom regrets that roast. So
I tell you, I'm actually excited, and our players should be too. And so, but it again, I think it highlights that, I can't, when you have these kinds of challenges coming up, it's not like you can just change everything right away. You have to, I think, in phases, kind of go through how you want to transform the team. And so, I mean, we're already excited. We're going to bring a little bit bigger group in for those first two friendlies, which will give me a chance to really survey all of our options of what we have at our disposal. And then, we'll figure out what exactly our Copa America squad looks like. But yeah, of course, those will be big challenges. But big players need to be put in these situations, and then we'll see how they respond. And I promise we'll learn a lot from those matches, and in the end, use them to make us better.
Jesse, I was just giving you a hard time. I know you're going to do fine. We're really thrilled for you in this position, but we have to bust your chops a little bit.
I know.
Yeah. So when you think about Netherlands and France in particular, they're going to ask questions of your team in a way that maybe Peru and Chile won't. And we could argue that the Peru and Chile games are probably your most important, with all due respect to how you're going to perform against Argentina, who are going to be similar, most likely, to Netherlands and France, probably have more of the ball. Do you think that sets up in a way? Because I know you like to play on the front foot, play a little bit higher up the field. But those opponents, given their quality, might necessitate you to drop off a little bit and absorb and maybe look to hit on the counter. So I'm kind of curious as to how you provide some flexibility and fluidity to your team depending on the opponent.
Yeah, clearly the first three games will require us to be really sound defensively and really good against the ball. And when I even look at our time at Leeds, it wasn't like people think pressing is when you put two strikers on the for a goal kick on the opponent's 18. And I see so many teams do that. They don't really sprint at the ball. They're spread out like crazy. Then teams pass through them. And so that's not pressing for me. Pressing for me is about controlling space and attacking the opponent with ball orientation and making sure that you're closing time and space, and then using that as a platform to win balls, and then trying to create options on attacking transition moments. So whether we do that a little bit deeper, whether we do that up high, whether we change it a little bit with some flexibility in the match, we're going to build in a few different things so that we're asking questions of our opponents. And then we still need to be brave with the ball and clear with what we want from our tactical positioning and how we want to be moving the ball and what kind of principles we want to have and connections we want to have and how we're going to find space with what we do in possession. And then when we lose it, we're going to be good at counter pressing, right? We're going to be good at winning the ball back again. And we're going to make sure that we're always in tune of what play happens next. And for me, that also can build up courage in your team if they know that losing balls doesn't just mean that you're automatically going to give up chances, but that's an opportunity for us to still control space and the opponent in different ways. So building that in and getting it to the level that I wanted to get to will obviously take time, but these will be the clear emphasis will be about establishing some core principles early on, and then over time it'll be about the execution of doing it at the highest level against the best opponents.
I think, obviously, just in hearing what you have to say about your ideas around this team, Canada, they got a good manager for them. I could promise you that they're in a much better place than they ever would have been once John Herdman left. So in hearing that, and if you were able to utilize the pace of Tajon Buchanan, Jonathan David, and Alphonso Davies, even Kyle Larin, Jason Russell-Rowe, who's starting to come on well with the Columbus Crew, you really have some weapons. But who are you going to have on your staff? Like, is your staff already set? Are there openings? Are you still tinkering?
Chuck's interested.
Charlie, I'm taking applications, Charlie.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, I'll put you through a 36-hour where I'll lock you in a hotel room and put you in through some different tests and questions. Okay, that's okay, good.
Can we interview any actors? Is that any?
Yeah. No, listen, I like in Canada they asked me about Mauro. Okay, and Mauro and I work together in Montreal, and he's, I think, has his finger on the pulse of the football in that nation and that national team, and so he and I have been in good discussions, and we're hopeful to come up with a solution for him. there's a few people from the staff that I need to continue to evaluate from the past and figure out, how to incorporate the right Canadian people. And maybe, with the national team, sometimes what you have is almost like a rotating, you have like maybe 3 or 4 full-time members, and then you have 3 or 4 that kind of rotate and, maybe it's a goalkeeper coach, maybe it's a fitness coach, maybe it's an assistant from the CPL or from one of the MLS teams, or, so, and then also incorporating the coaching staffs from the younger age groups, and making sure that they're around our environment and see the things that we're emphasizing and can translate that down to some of the youth teams. So yeah, I mean, you have to be a little bit creative because you don't always have the same kind of resources. And I think Canada has come out of a place where the resources haven't been great, but I know that with a lot of the professionalism and work that Kevin Blue's doing, we're going to take it to a different place, and we're going to continue to build what the infrastructure looks and expertise looks like. So
Can we see?
Yeah,
can we see Pierre Barriot make?
Yeah, we could see
appearance?
we could see Pierre. We could see Pierre. We could see you and Sharp. Somebody was with me in Leeds. Somebody was with me in New York Red Bulls. There's a few people from the past that I've been speaking with, and we'll see if they can factor in the group. But in the end, I know, I've talked to you guys about this before. I've had different staffs everywhere I've been, and I really take pride in the fact that I try to engage the staff. I try to challenge them. I try to make them feel like they're a team, like we're a team. And I know that always this is the first healthy step towards a good environment for the players, because if they see how we behave and interact as a staff, and if we're strong and committed and united, then they almost have no other way to behave but to follow the same lead. But we have to also hold each other to very high standards. That's a big part.
Okay, so Chuck, let's pretend Jesse isn't here for a second. Do you remember back in Dallas, and Jesse said that the press has to be critical?
Yeah.
That's how it is over in Europe. And if things aren't looking good, then hey, that's just the way it is. I remember this from Jesse. So do you think?
But wait a minute, we were never critical. That's the only thing. We were like super positive all the time. Really? I mean,
we were pretty critical.
Seriously, when?
Just us. I wouldn't say the rest of the media world is as I think we're fair as hell. I'd say we
Yeah, I think we were more than positive.
So bringing Jesse back into the equation, Jesse, if there's say a result doesn't go the way that you would like, do you want us to be fair, or do you want us to be critical?
You do whatever you want. I don't care, Jimmy.
No.
Listen, typically my view with the media is I'm pretty open, right? So when I get asked questions, I'm not the kind of guy that's like looking to protect certain things or steer questions in a different way. The one thing I always try to do is protect the players. I don't want to be a guy who goes out and thrashes the people in the team, and I want them to feel like they're always supported in a good way. And by the way, whenever the team doesn't do well, I'll say I don't think the team did well today, and I'll say I have to find a better way to communicate exactly what I think they need to do, and find a way to help them improve. And that's the job of a coach. And if you can't take that responsibility, and if you can't accept that there's going to be criticism, then what are you doing? What are you doing in this job? Then you should be a pundit on a podcast.
Yeah, that's
facts.
Podcast. No, because obviously we're friends, and our relationships have grown throughout this process, of course. And so, we want to make sure that there's still room for us to be like, what's Jesse doing up there?
Yeah, I would expect nothing less. I would expect.
So in terms of the center back depth, because I feel like that's the weakest part of the Canadian national team. What is the plan there? Do you have hopes of kind of reestablishing that with current guys now? Are there guys that are younger in the youth national teams that you feel like you're going to bring up, or maybe players who haven't been given an opportunity that you feel like, I think I can get a little bit more out of them here?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually been in evaluating the players in that position. I've been more pleasantly surprised at the quality we have, and I think a big part of it will be now creating a tactical sophistication and understanding as to what we will need for our team to be successful, and then staying on top of those details. I will probably personally take on a lot of the role of helping coach that back line and helping them understand exactly what some of the tactical philosophies are. But there's certainly some, there's Bombito at Colorado. There's Hebert at St. Louis, who I think is done a good job. Both of those teams play with a similar tactical model. Obviously, Kamal Miller has done well and is a guy that I think we can count on. McGraw is also there, so maybe as their relationship, we can pull on that a little bit. Waterman in Montreal. So there's, and then I still think we can use Johnston as a little bit of a flexibility of playing him at right back, sometimes at center back, or even how we kind of rotate that in the game. So there's enough there to work with, and it'll be up to me, I think, to really help establish these guys and be clear with them as to what the tactical model and the tactical connections need to look like. And I think if there's some natural ability there, and now we just need to refine it into what our system is.
I'm hearing picking up with Alphonso Davies being a little bit more central. Maybe there's some inverted fullbacks coming our way with Canada. Just throwing that out there. All right. So Chuck has to go. Chuck, I want to be thoughtful of your time. I know that you're hosting a charity event, but so we're going to do one last word of the day on Call It What You Want with Jesse Marsch. Okay.
Let's give him an L. Send him off with an L, eh?
Send him with an L. Okay. So this in this language, it's
can I mute Charlie here? Can I mute him?
So the word of the day is going to be good luck, because we obviously wish you the best of luck until you're playing the U.S. But outside of that, we want you to crush it. Okay, so in this language, you got to tell me where it's from. It's Sela Sueyu. Sela Sueyu. That means good luck.
Yes.
Now, hold on. Now I got
it. I got it. All right. All right. I have
Let's give him a chance. First clue. Considered by many to be their most famous football player, this midfielder / striker played for the Chicago Fire in the early 2000s.
Woo!
Okay. Clue number 2. This country is currently ranked 146th by FIFA, right above Concacaf powerhouse St. Kitts and Nevis. Those are your 2 clues. Sela Sueyu means good luck. Hey! Hey, do you know who the player was?
Dipsy Salawain.
Salawain. I love that. Unbelievable. We're sending him off on a high note. Botswana. We're tying that joke.
Clever. Well done, Des. Well done. Botswana.
Unbelievable scenes. Unbelievable scenes. All right, we're going to take our next break. Chuck Wagon.
It was an absolute pleasure. Call it what you want.
Brother.
Go out and kill it.
Right on, brother. Thanks, pal.
All right, we're going to take our next break. When we come back,
Break tracks.
It's just me and Jesse to see us out. So don't go anywhere.
From the world of Sonic the Hedgehog, is there anyone stronger?
No.
Tougher?
No.
Hungrier?
Grapes was an interesting choice for someone who doesn't use fingers.
Knuckles, now streaming only on Paramount Plus.
I don't think that anything that we've really done as a podcast has been that unfair. I actually think we've been pretty supportive.
If we're being honest with ourselves and we were each to make a top 100 list, we wouldn't put an American on there right now.
But I would love to see 2 strikers. I would love to see a more attacking team. It's just they have to be really, really smart about not exposing themselves on the counter.
If it were me, I would treat Copa America like it's a big part of the next step in the process. At that moment, I let the team down and I let the club down by allowing him to do that. I'm a little surprised that FIFA, when they gave us the World Cup, didn't mandate along with that promotion relegation.
I advocated for not bringing him. And by the way, the whole time I'm watching and I'm proud of the performance, I'm like, please don't get hurt. Please don't. Please don't get hurt.
You can always accept losing if you feel like your team is organized, giving its all, doesn't back down, and that's part of life.
We're getting better, guys. I feel like
some highlights there of Jesse Marsch for his time with Call It What You Want. We're sad to see you go, Jesse. Obviously, we're thrilled for this opportunity, as I mentioned before. I guess one of the questions I think is interesting that I want to know from you is, I mean, managing a club is you have that day-to-day kind of thrill of having to perform and proving yourself. But with a national team job, there seems to be a lot of lulls. Now, you've already mentioned a lot of the things that Canada in general needs to work on. So you probably can fill those buckets and voids in certain ways, but it's still not the same with that day-to-day grind. How are you going to figure out how to manage that?
Yeah, I talked about it a little bit. I think there's a lot to be accomplished outside of just what we're trying to achieve with the first team. And I know that's my primary role and job, but I'm really hopeful to help the sport grow, to do coaching symposiums, to be out with some of the youth teams, to meet with coaches and leaders in the communities, and to really help energize the sport and energize the excitement around 2026. And obviously, everybody in the U.S., it's thought of as like the U.S. Home World Cup, but it's in Canada and Mexico too. And I think that this is really beneficial for the region, for Concacaf, and certainly for Canada and Mexico. I don't think Mexico needs Mexico. The sport is so beloved, maybe as much as any country in the world. But they're asking a little bit of questions of themselves right now about the development of some of their players and how to keep their prominence in CONCACAF. Canada, I think, has a real special moment in time with the establishment of the Canadian Premier League, with the three established MLS teams, having now and on home soil, we're playing three group matches all here, and I think there's a specialness to the multiculturalism of what Canada is, and if people haven't spent time in Canada, they wouldn't really know the difference of how that impact of what it's like to be in the city.
Looks like Jesse has frozen in mid thought too, where everything was coming out. So here's, I got something for everybody. We'll get Jesse back on. Don't worry. I'm going to ask him this question, but I want to pose it to you. I want to give everybody some context as to where this is coming from, because ahead of the 2014 World Cup, there was an opportunity. It was the 100-year centennial of US soccer, and we had an opportunity to talk to Jurgen Klinsmann at a round table. And as I do, because I never really ask straightforward questions, I asked Jurgen Klinsmann a would you rather. And for me, it was an important would you rather, because Jurgen came in and was promising the worlds, right? And vertical integration, and all of our teams are going to play the same, and normal stuff. But the way that he was selling it made it feel very romantic. So I just wanted to cut to the core of it a bit, and I gave him a would you rather ahead of the 2014 World Cup. And the would you rather was, would you rather play really well in our group, right? We had Portugal, we had Germany, and we had Ghana. So we had the group of death. Would you rather play really well and so well that it was kind of sending a message to the rest of the countries around the world that whole crap, the U.S. has figured it out. They've unlocked something. Okay, maybe they didn't advance out of their group, but there is something, a part of the process now that we can see that they're taking that next step to be something that's going to be a superpower in the sport moving forward. So that's how I phrase it. Or the other side of the would you rather is, would you rather get out of the group, but we're still playing to our stereotypes, sitting back, absorbing, trying to score on a set piece. And I wanted to challenge Jurgen in that way, because he was kind of promising this romantic, puppy dogs and rainbows and all that type of stuff. And obviously, perfect world, you have that and you still advance. But I really wanted to kind of get to the core of that. And I want to ask Jesse the same, especially as it pertains to the Copa America. So would you rather demonstrate that you are building and it shows, but maybe you just get a little unlucky and not go through, as opposed to surviving and getting through? I think there's a real interesting area to explore in that space. So if we get him back on, that would be awesome, because we're working on it. Right now, as he mentioned, he's traveling through Europe. But yeah, if you have any questions, hit me up right now as we try to get Jesse back on so we can finish this up. I'm going to drop on the YouTube. What do we got questions wise? Hit me up right now. I'm looking at the chat. What do we got? We got some good questions in here. I want to know. And how does everybody in the chat think that Canada is going to do in the Copa America? So And really, I guess this is another thing too, is expectations. So what are the expectations? Because if I am one of the MLS owners that helped pay for Jesse's salary, obviously that's going to come with some expectations. It's going to come with some tethers. Like if I'm Joey Saputo, I'd be like, hey, Jesse, we love you. We're glad you're back in the fold. We think you can do great things for Canada soccer. Also, we need you to get to the semifinals of Copa America. I mean, there's going to be something, some baggage attached to any deal, right? It can't just all be roses. There's got to be some type of standards that need to be met in some capacity. So I wanted to lean in on the would you rather and obviously talk about these expectations. If Canada, that's a good question here from Rafa. What's up, Rafa? If Canada played the US today, who would win? Right now, I think the US would win because we've established our identity, whether you like it or not, under Greg Berhalter. And I think that the players are very comfortable with how we're moving and comfortable with each other. Not to say Canada doesn't have that same rapport. It's clear that the players know how to move and are used to playing with each other in high pressure situations. And I feel like that would lend itself to them being competitive, of course, because they're super talented. I just think it's going to take a few games to have Jesse implement his style and the way that he wants to on both sides of the ball, where he wants to win it as a group. Obviously, in general, you want to win the ball as high up the field as possible because then when you win it, you're closer to the opposing goal. But in certain moments, and that was what I was trying to get at a little bit earlier with Jesse, in certain moments, are there spaces where you're not going to have the ball, you are defending in your half, and then where are you trying to win the ball? And is everybody still organized to make that happen, so that when you do win it, and now you are 70 to 80 yards away from your opposing goal, what are you doing to break out of that? What are the passing patterns? What are the ideas that are going to get you out of those situations? And I think those are all the multi-layered tactics that I think Jesse needs to implement. And I think that takes time. Whereas I think the U.S. is already in place. So listen, I'm also biased because I played for the U.S. All right. Any other questions? I've got answers. As you know, I like to talk. More often than not, as the host, I defer to Jesse and want to get his insight in general, and Chuck as well. So I'm kind of moving things along, and I don't necessarily get to talk as much. But look at me go today. Wind me up and watch me go. So Kevin asks a counterattacking setup. I'll get that in a second. We have one on screen. Time Intensive says, I'm a young fan here, so I wasn't really active in 2014. I love it. Getting into the sport. What did Klinsmann say to my question? And do you think in 5 years it will be Canada or Mexico as our biggest rivals? Great questions, lots of layers. So yes, I should have finished that story. Jurgen Klinsmann said that he'd rather play ultimately to our stereotypes and get out of the group. And if we don't look back at 2014 with rose-colored glasses, we could argue that we kind of did play to our stereotypes and get out of our group. I was at all 3 games in person in Brazil. We played Ghana first. Ghana had 21 shots or something. They were pumping us. I was nervous that whole game. Now, thankfully, we scored in the first 2 minutes of the game, and we scored in the last 2 minutes of the game on a set piece, right, to beat Ghana. And then Portugal, we had to have a wonder goal by Jermaine Jones, and we gave up a late goal on that one to what? I think we drew with Portugal, and then we lost to Germany, where we just sat back the whole time, and Germany had like 85% of the ball. And then we went to round of 16 and played against Belgium. And I know everybody's like, Wondolowski miss, but we gave up more shots in a World Cup game than in any other team in the history of the competition. So yes, amazing that we got out of our group. But if you look at it as unemotionally as possible, played to our stereotypes a little bit. So I was more on the other side. I wanted to buy into the romanticism of Jurgen Klinsmann. I wanted to get in there and I wanted us to see where we're playing on the front foot and we're driving the game, and even when we don't have the ball, we're still somewhat in charge. That's how I like to coach my teams. And maybe it's a bit idealistic, but still that's what I would be working towards. And then to the second part of your question, Mexico's in a transition moment and have been for a while. And I think they've been trying to figure out, how do we maintain the identity of our team as we knew? And they did switch to a coach. What was his name? Oh, Diego. Remember, he switched to a back 3 when Mexico does not play a back 3, right? They were like 4-3-3. That's their identity. That's how they want to play. I can't think of his last name right now. Anyway, so they fired him pretty quickly, and then they brought in Jaime Lozano, who's currently in charge now. and was it Diego Coca? Maybe it was Diego Coca. So they're getting back to their roots, but now they gotta play the kids. They got to get their kids more experience, with all due respect to Memo Ochoa and Raul Jimenez and some of the other players that have been a part of the program for a long time. Got to play the kids. So it's a great question. I'm kind of dodging this. I think Jesse's going to do a great job of continuing to strengthen the foundation of Canadian soccer. And I think he's going to put some really good ideas in place. So we'll see where he ends up after 26. Maybe he sticks around to do 2030 if he really enjoyed the experience of coaching with the national team. I think that Canada's also in a bit of a golden generation right now. And what is that going to look like in 5 years? As Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David and Tejan Buchanan in particular, they're attacking studs. Kyle Larin, what does that look like when they're a little bit older? That's a great question. But I'll say Canada at the moment. But at some point, it is cyclical. Mexico will find their way back in and be very competitive once again. And then, as in terms of counterattacking, I assume you're talking about Canada. That was one of the questions I asked Jesse earlier. And we're still trying to work to get him back on. And if not, then it's just me bringing it home, baby. But when I think about what Canada has to prepare for with Netherlands and France in friendlies, and then Argentina in the first game of the Copa America, I actually think those are two great opponents to prepare for in Argentina. My concern is the two most winnable games in the foreseeable future and the most important games for Jesse in his early part of his tenure as coach is Peru and Chile. And they're not necessarily preparing with a team that will maybe look like them, or that could potentially be sitting in a low block. And what does Canada look like in that situation? I do think that they're going to counterattack and probably would smartly want to counterattack and really be thoughtful about when they want to go and when they want to stay against some of those big countries that I mentioned. But when you get into the Peru and Chile games, that Peru game, especially that second game of the tournament, let's say on paper they should lose to Argentina. Okay, so say they lose to Argentina. That Peru game becomes so important for them to hopefully get out of the group. So how are they going to approach that? And Peru are not going to be rolling over by any stretch of the imagination. All right, so I'm getting word from our lovely producers who do so much great work behind the scenes that Jesse Marsch will be unavailable for the rest of the show, but we're very thankful that he was part of this Call It What You Want adventure for so long. We're so excited for him to have this opportunity with Canada, even though I'm a little sad he's gone to a rival. I know he's going to do fantastic work up there. And obviously when they're not playing the US, I will be pulling for him. And we created some Photoshops. We're going to throw these up right now. We're going straight in on all the stereotypes. Jesse doing some curling here. No, wait, is it curling? Is that the ice? I don't even know what it is. And then you got Jesse doing some bobsledding. Yeah, curling. My brain is mush right now. We had Jesse doing some sledding with some dogs. Hopefully he'll get into the Iditarod at some point. Then we got Jesse wearing traditional garb in Canada with the Canadian hats. Okay. We probably needed a moose or two in there. He's a Mountie. He's got the Mountie outfit on. Shout out to Brad for putting this together. And then here he is taking a look all the way up with the tower in Toronto, looking down. And that's where he says he's going to spend the majority of his time. So hopefully he'll get a nice view of the action. And again, we're very excited for Jesse and very thankful that he was a part of this with us. So that's it. I'm calling it a show. As a reminder, we will be back live next week. The show's not going anywhere. The show must go on. Me and Charlie will be back next week on Monday, going live with Brian McBride, a U.S. men's national team legend. And we're looking forward to it. We obviously have some big shows coming up with the Copa America and our friendlies as well. So appreciate your support. We love you guys. Call It What You Want will continue. And we'll see you next week. Later.